we go. Good morning, colleagues. Well, even good afternoon. And thank you very much for clicking on the link and joining us for this live question and answer session with the Nelson Mandela Museum in South Africa. My name is Matt Lowden, and I'm a senior lecturer at the Institute of Education here at Winchester University. And this is the first event we've hosted live with the Nelson Mandela Museum. We've had very strong links with the Mandela Museum for the last 4 years, and they're based in Matata, South Africa. We have sent students and lecturers over to South Africa for visits. We've hosted visitors from staff members over here. And 2 summers ago, we hosted a one-day conference, a big conference, celebrating the centenary of the birth of Nelson Mandela. So that's just a little bit of background about how we arrived at this event today. And hopefully it will be the first of a number of events across the year. And I think what we have found, certainly on our side, is that anybody, students or otherwise, that we talk to, everybody has heard of the name of Nelson Mandela. It's a very strong brand name, a strong global name. Yet increasingly with some of our undergraduate students, some of the students may know a little less about what he did and the legacy he is giving. So hopefully this is a chance for us to give you the opportunity to ask questions. If you do have any questions, if you could please type them into the conversation box, that will be picked up and relayed to me and I can ask them. So first of all, I would just like to welcome Nelisiwe Thwala, who works at the Nelson Mandela Museum, and I will let Nelisiwe introduce herself, and if she could just explain, if that's okay, Nelly, how the Nelson Mandela Museum works with local communities to promote Nelson Mandela's legacy. Thank you. Over to you, Nelly.
Thank you very much, Matt. Good afternoon, everyone. As Matt has introduced me, my name is Nelly Thwala, and I work for the Nelson Mandela Museum in the Eastern Cape province of South Africa, in a small town called Mthatha, and that is where Nelson Mandela was born. I work there as the Senior Manager, Heritage and Conservation, which is the core unit of the museum. By saying core, I mean it's because we deal with everything museum. For instance, taking care of collection and conservation and research, exhibitions, as well as the library and archives. So that's my unit that I am heading. And yes, we have 2 other units, which is the corporate services, as well as the public engagement and marketing. Thank you very much, Matt. Okay, we have several programs that we do with the community to promote the legacy and values of Tata Nelson Mandela. On a quarterly basis, we organize dialogues, seminars, colloquia, and conferences, whereby we engage the community about issues that are affecting them in their current lives today, trying to come up with solutions and to try and apply Mandela's mind as to how he would go about dealing with those, because you find that sometimes issues like gender-based violence, poverty, unemployment, lack of education, or any other societal matters may make people to lose hope and resort to the wrong ways of dealing with issues, like maybe starting to protest in a violent manner or anything. And as we all know, that Mandela was a peace-loving human being. So we try and discuss issues with the community and also come up with ideas of tackling them in a peaceful and united way that would promote social cohesion instead of one person killing another because of lack of food or because of whatever problems that they are faced with on a daily basis. And in other words, we are trying to emulate Nelson Mandela in the way that we lead our lives on a daily basis through his values, and promote them and tell people that you can't always resort to violence for you to be heard. So you can become, but still achieve the same thing that you think you would have achieved having been using the violent ways of doing it. That's one part of the things where we engage the community. And we also have the exhibitions, which are divided into three. They are permanent exhibitions within the physical structure of the museum. And there are temporary exhibitions that we change, maybe quarterly or whenever we need to change them. And we also have the traveling exhibitions. So with the ones within the physical building, which is the permanent and as well as the temporary, that's where people come, especially schools and tourists and whoever else wants to learn about the history of the South African struggle, as well as Nelson Mandela together with his contemporaries, because he was not alone in fighting for human rights and against the apartheid, but he had other people that he was doing those things with. So if you want to learn more about that, you come to the museum. Our exhibitions will tell you his story from his birth until the time he passed. And then we have the traveling exhibitions. By traveling exhibitions, we are trying to take the museum out to the people who cannot come to the museum, because we want to extend his footsteps to the places where no one thought could reach. So people especially in the remote areas and the people who cannot really afford, who are living in poor conditions, we take the museum there through the traveling exhibitions as a means of the outreach programs as well as education. And then we have the research section. The research, the story of Nelson Mandela will never be complete, because even today we are still unearthing some untold and unpublished stories relating to Nelson Mandela and to what to the cause he was fighting for, and to what he dedicated his whole life to during the time of his life on this earth. So our researcher does that kind of research to try and find those stories so that you can close the gaps, because you can never have a full exhibition without gaps. And also we want to assist students and learners, because they have their own personal research work that they are doing, maybe for scholarly purposes or just to enrich themselves. So we want them, when they come to the museum, they can get the information, a correct one, from us as the Nelson Mandela Museums, and since we are the custodians of his legacy. And we also have some collection items that were donated to the museum anonymously, whereby people would just send, maybe by mail, from maybe, let's say, Uganda or from Europe. We would receive parcels here with no information at all. So our research unit does that as well, to try and attach provenance to each and every one of them, so that when we exhibit them, we have a background story for you to tell, so that you can understand why are we exhibiting this. But not that we accept anything, only those that are theme related, because our theme here is about the legacy and values, and as well as how South Africa attained democracy with his efforts, together with his predecessors, as well as those he was fighting for, for the freedom with. And yes, we do have learning platforms and school outreach programs. That is where we go to schools to try and make an awareness about the museum, and also to develop information targeting learners locally and internationally to understand cultural backgrounds and histories, and to encourage them to debate and interrogate Nelson Mandela's values towards social cohesion and nation building. And the museum, in order to do that, we also have the youth camps that we hold during the winter holidays, whereby learners from different provinces would gather here in Umtata. We have a place called the Youth Center in Nkunu. Then maybe they'll be there for a week, empowering each other and learning about leadership and any other thing that would empower a young person of today. and also using Nelson Mandela's values as the guiding light. Yes, and even now, since we were dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic, we had to try and get some means because we couldn't gather learners from all over, like I was saying, due to the lockdown. So we started a learning platform that includes e-legacy online classroom, which has been introduced during this period. And that's how we engage learners online about topics that are aligned to Nelson Mandela's values, and also topics that would, in a way, supplement what they are taught at schools about the topic of Nelson Mandela. And yes, we have different types of outreach programs that we do with schools. Other than that, we even have partnerships outside this country. For example, like this one between us and Winchester, but there's another one with the Germany institution, whereby we take our learners every year to go there and learn about leadership and stuff. We just select learners from different provinces in South Africa to go there. And even there, we manage, each time they go, we tell them about the mandate that is given to this institution, which is to promote the legacy and the values of Nelson Mandela. And whatever we do is based on those values. And we also work with arts and crafts people from the local community and throughout the country, whereby we give them a chance to exhibit their work so that tourists from overseas especially would come and see the handiwork of the people, especially the poverty-stricken ones. You'd find that they are very talented with their hands. And Nelson Mandela, amongst his values, it was to help one another. So we're helping them promote their skills and talent so that they can be able to make a living. So mainly those are the things that the Nelson Mandela does to engage the community. And we also listen to their complaints and comments, and whatever ideas they come up with, feasible or not, we discuss and we give them a chance to come up with ideas so that they can have a sense of ownership towards the museum. So all in all, that is what we are all about. I hope I made sense with all my babbling.
Nelly, absolutely perfect. Thank you. Very, very good. Now, I just want to go back to Mandela, the man. I mean, for people of a certain age, as I was growing up, he was imprisoned, he left prison, he became president, there was the end of apartheid. He was, well, in a sense, with me for a large portion of my life, and lots of other people, maybe of my age group or a little bit younger. But I'm just thinking now about the primary school children, for example, over in South Africa. So they will be growing up now, their parents, their grandparents will be talking about Mandela with a knowledge of what he did in real time, whereas the young ones now, they will be growing up hearing the name, but without that personal knowledge of what he did and what he achieved. I'm just curious, Nelly, you spend time in schools over there in South Africa. What's your perception? How do you think the young ones in South Africa see Nelson Mandela now?
Okay, thank you so much for the question. I'm glad you asked, because some of them have distorted ideas about who Nelson Mandela really was, due to the fact that when it's campaigning time, when there's going to be elections, the opposing parties, by opposing parties, I mean not the ANC, which Mandela was affiliated with, they always look for small things that he did and turn it around to their favor to make him look like he was a traitor, because he was expected to, when he comes out of jail, to come back angry, you see, and maybe try and find ways of revenging the 27 years spent in jail. But instead, he opted for peace and reconciliation. So others grow up thinking that he was a traitor, but then we try and give them proof with our exhibitions here of what he was about, and would ask them to identify one good leader in their community who does good for the community without expecting anything in return. And they always have a name to give to us. And with that name, we always tell them that Nelson Mandela was that kind of a person and more, because he was never angry with the fact that he had to leave his young wife and young children behind and go spend 27 years in jail. Even when they were trying to release him on conditions, he would refuse those conditions because they were not in sync with what he was fighting for. So that way they managed to see a little bit of him in those leaders that are existing today within their communities, doing good for the communities and not expecting the communities to praise them or to give them anything in return. So in a way, as they grow up, and besides, Nelson Mandela is the topic that is taught in different grades in schools. And the schools that visit the museum, it's not just an outing. It's an extension of school. It's an extension of a lesson that they got from school. So when they come here, they see that the person called Nelson Mandela really walked this earth at some point, and he really made a difference for him to be portrayed the way we portray him here. So in a way, we manage to instill and also to make them understand that Nelson Mandela was human as us. He also made mistakes like everyone else. But then the main thing about him is that he sacrificed his whole life. Yes, we do have good leaders today, but I don't know if any one of them would do what Nelson Mandela did. So in a way, they try to see him in those people that they see around them. That's what I'm trying to say. And also what we offer here at the museum, because it's proof of what they are taught theoretically at schools.
Nelly, thank you. That's amazing to hear. And it's so good that you get so many school children coming in to see your exhibitions, and also with the travelling exhibits as well. If we just move on over to the UK, so we have at this university, we train a lot of teachers to become primary teachers, and we have perhaps 600 students currently training to become a primary school teacher. And if there were one message that you could give them, so if you, for example, were able to wave a magic wand and have the student teachers teach about Mandela in the classrooms over here, what one quality or one facet of Mandela do you think would be the most important thing for the student teachers over here to bring to the UK classrooms?
Yeah, hey, that's an interesting question. I think the primary school learners are young. And if you want to instill something in one's head, do it while they are still young. I would say the value-based teaching like you do must start very early. Actually, not even before school, you see. And also Mandela can be their example as to the fact that you can live and achieve big things by being righteous, by having humanity, by having your neighbor enjoying the same advantages that you are enjoying as a human being. But in their own language, you see at the Nelson Mandela Museum, we have a cartoon exhibition for such learners so that they can relate. They relate better if they see something in a cartoon form. So whatever language you use the children's language, but teach them the same thing that you'll be teaching the older children. Yeah, it's when it comes to Mandela, really, you run out of words as to how to explain, but then talk in their language, but be firm in instilling the values. You see.
Thank you very much. Now, just moving on to, I think you were sort of hinting at it earlier on. So Mandela was a huge influence in the ANC party, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think they're still the leading force in South African politics. But is Mandela still revered, or is his legacy still looked upon in a very positive sense by politicians these days? Or how is he portrayed by political leaders in South Africa?
Oh, he is still loved so much, even by the opposing parties. I'll tell you one thing, in the elections of 2009, if I'm not mistaken, there's this opposing party called Democratic Alliance. They were using Nelson Mandela and his face for their campaigns. They would attach his face on their placards and everything that they were campaigning with, in a way that the ANC tried to go the legal route to stop them. But they couldn't, because Nelson Mandela, in as much as he was affiliated with the ANC, he was everyone's president. And he didn't want to be confined within the ANC party. He wanted to belong to the whole of South Africa, being Inkatha Freedom Party, PAC, ANC, DA, or whatever political party that exists in South Africa. So they couldn't. Even today, Nelson Mandela and Winnie Mandela, the newly formed parties like the Economic Freedom Fighters, those who came out of ANC because they had some misunderstandings and they had to leave the party and form their own parties, they still use them as a tool to lure people to them, both Nelson Mandela as well as Winnie. So I don't think his legacy will ever die. And I don't think, because even the people who were opposing him while he was alive, they speak fondly of him even today. It's just those young ones who don't understand, like I was saying, would call him a traitor and stuff. And those who are trying to gain some spotlight who would use that, but it's nothing major. He's still loved like you've never seen. When it's Mandela month, everything stops in South Africa. On the 18th of July, everyone commits to some good for the community using their 67 minutes, whether they are ANC or IFP or whatever party that exists in South Africa.
Thank you, Nelly. And just to those of us who don't know, so the 18th of July is the anniversary of his death, is that right?
No, of his birth. He was born.
Of his birth.
Yes. He died on the 5th of December, 2013.
And so that is a national holiday, is it, the 18th of July?
It's not the holiday, it's the day of doing good for the community. Whatever it is that you decide to do, without expecting anything in return. You may want to go paint an old school, or maybe buy ceiling or whatever you decide to do with your 67 minutes. So everyone does something for the community, for the benefit of the next person who's less fortunate on that day. He said he didn't want it to be a holiday, but let's just, and 67 represents the years he spent in politics. That's why it's 67 minutes.
Thank you very much, Nelly. Now, this one is that I was asked to ask this question by a friend who works in a school, and it's so what was it about Nelson Mandela? It's a tricky one. What was it about Nelson Mandela, do you think, that enabled him to do the things he did? What qualities did Nelson Mandela possess that enabled him to achieve what he did?
I think he loved his country more than he loved himself. He loved anything South Africa, everyone, black, blue, green, red. So for him to have a happy life, he had to see South Africans happy and free and equal. I think it was his love for his country, you see, that made him do all the things he did. Because like I'm saying, that he left his young wife, Winnie Mandela was very young, with 2 young daughters, and spent 27 years in jail. Sacrificed everything that another human being wouldn't even dream of doing, you see, because of the love of the country, the love of the fellow human beings that he lived with in South Africa. If we talk about patriotism, what comes to my mind, firstly, it's Nelson Mandela. We are all patriotic, but we can't do the things he did.
Nelly, thank you. Wonderful answer. Thank you very much. Now, this could get us in trouble, but I'm sure it won't. Let's not dwell on the people that don't live up to his ideals, but are there any politicians you see around the world at the minute that do remind you of some of his positive qualities?
Yes, This one person called Barack Obama. Yeah, in the time where he was in the office as the president of America, yeah, he did a lot of good. Although he can't be compared to Nelson Mandela, but in so many ways, he was his young version.
And thank you, Nelly. Did Barack Obama come to Matata when there was for the funeral? I think he visited then, did he? Or who was it? You had a lot of visitors.
Yes, he even spoke on the funeral. I mean, at the memorial service, they gave him time to speak. He spoke.
Perfect. Now, I think worldwide, it's fair to say at the minute, COVID-19 is having a number of different effects, most of them negative. I know that here in the UK, there are differing views on how this pandemic should be overcome. And I'm sure it's the same in every other country. But I'm just wondering if you could speak just briefly to our listeners about how life over there, maybe for the museum or in general, has been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yeah, hey, I think this year will go down in history books as one of the years that we never thought would ever happen in this lifetime, because everything just came to a standstill when this thing came to South Africa. Everything was shut down and everyone was forced to stay indoors. If you were to be found wandering on the street, the police would deal with you harshly and you would regret why you left your home. And we all had to work from home, those of us who could, but other people were too bored. You see, sitting, lazing around because they are used to waking up every morning, having a purpose for the day, knowing what to do, how their day would pan out. But then they were stuck at home, you see. The most frustrating part was the fact that even hospital couldn't cope with the number of people who were being brought there because of COVID-19. And should you be infected, no visitors are allowed to come anywhere near you. So people were dying alone in hospitals and all those things. It was a miserable time. It's much better now, but the infections are still happening on a daily basis because people think stage 1 means no more COVID-19 when it's still around, and yeah, people are still getting it. I also got it myself not that long ago, where I think it was a month ago or so. I think I told you, Matt, about this one, but I was not sick, luckily. Other people get sick quickly and die quickly. You see, it's just that with me, they found it while I was fine. So I stayed at home, miserable, entertaining all the wrong thoughts. But then if you are not sick and taking care of yourself, then you make it. But life is still not 100% back to normal. We're still trying to adjust to this new normal because right now we still need to wear our masks every day, and we still have a certain number of people that you can take inside the museum, and we still can't go to big open spaces like your arenas, your stadiums and stuff where a large number of people gather because it's not allowed at the moment. You see, even with the funeral, if your loved one dies today, you have to make sure that within 3 days you bury them, and you can't have all your relatives supporting you. It just wreaked havoc in South Africa. But then, yeah, I think the whole world experienced the same thing.
Nelly, thank you. It's the same. We have the same over here, masks wherever we go.
Yeah.
I've just had a question in now. It's what can you tell us about Nelson Mandela as a child, his childhood? Because for those that may not know, the museum where Nelly is right now is where Mandela spent his childhood. So could you just briefly talk about his childhood, Nelly? Is that okay?
Yes, he was a very curious and clever boy. He wanted to know, he had questions all the time about everything. And that's where his leadership skills were honed, because I don't know if you are aware that he came from the royal family. His uncle was the chief. So he had his council that he used to sit with. There's a place called Mqhekezweni here in the Eastern Cape, where he spent his youth before he went to the university. So the chief and his council would sit under a tree discussing matters that affect the community. And children and women are not allowed at that scene. But Nelson Mandela will sneak and hide behind the tree and listen. You see, and learning all the leadership skills from his uncle. So he was very, very, very curious and yeah, just a normal boy, but with a curious and clever mind. Because even after he went to the mountains, you see here, young boys, especially from the Xhosa culture, they have to go to the mountain to be circumcised and become men. That's the tradition. So he was very excited about that. He was not scared. And at some point, they tried to marry him to arrange a wife for him to marry. And that's when he ran away from home because he didn't want to marry the girl they had chosen for him. So he was a cheerful, clever, inquisitive child, one of a kind, actually. So his leadership skills and everything were honed at a young age, and he grew up different from the rest of his peers because even within his family, his father had a polygamy. He had 4 wives, and Nelson Mandela's mother was one of those wives. But he was the only one who went to tertiary school and, yeah, who studied as far as he did in the whole family.
Thank you, Nelly. Now, I hear you mention his uncle and he learnt leadership skills from his uncle. Could you just talk about that a little bit more, if that's possible, or any other early influences who shaped him as a leader?
I think his uncle, yes, was the very first one, because like I'm saying, he would watch behind the tree. They wouldn't notice him because he would hide so well that they won't see him. Then there was Oliver Tambo, who introduced him to politics. That's another person that does not get the due praise that he deserves for trying to bring Mandela into politics. You see, and they worked for the law firm, as you know that he had a law qualification. So that's where his love for the politics started. You see, so those 2 people, I think, played a big role in his life, as well as his mother, because after the death of his father, his mother decided to remove him from where he was to a place where she felt he was going to get a better life and a better upbringing at her brother's house, the brother who was the chief that I was telling you about. So, yeah.
Nelly, thank you. And we've just had another question that came in. Just wondering if Nelson Mandela went to university at all and what he might have studied when he did go.
Yes, he did. He went to Fort Hare University here in the Eastern Cape, as well as that, if I'm not mistaken, but I stand to be corrected on the second one. And he studied law, and he also studied anthropology.
Yeah. And so he was a trained lawyer. He was a qualified lawyer.
Yes. Although he always talked openly about the fact that his mind was too immersed into politics that at some point he would fail his modules because he was not focusing. But then at the end of the day, he did get what he was studying towards. And the anthropology, I think he did it while he was incarcerated.
Thank you, Nelly. Now, I've got another question here. And it's asking about, there's a poem called Invictus. I don't know if you are familiar with it, written by W.E. Henley. And it was supposedly something that inspired Mandela to endure his imprisonment. But I'm just wondering if you could recommend for our students any literature that would allow them to understand a little bit more about the man and his values.
Yeah, that's a sensitive question because I don't want to advertise the publishers and the authors here. I would send people to the Long Walk to Freedom book because that one we can own. It's the Nelson Mandela's book. Other people's book, others are not factually correct. I'm not saying which is factually correct and which is not. So I would rather not tell them to go to consult which book. other than the long walk to freedom, which I can stand even in court for it because I'm part of the custodians of his legacy. Because you'd find that sometimes people see an opportunity to make quick bucks, then they would write a book about someone when they don't have all the facts. So I'd rather not mention anyone's book.
No, that's fine. But as you say, the long walk to freedom is a very, very good starting place. Okay, Nelly, we've got one more question that's just come in here. What plans do the museum have for the year ahead?
Okay. To start with, this year, the current year, was going to be a very big year for us for two reasons. Firstly, the museum was turning 20. Secondly, it was going to be 30 years since Nelson Mandela was released from prison. So we had all sorts of activities planned, unbeknown to us that this animal called COVID-19 would come and disrupted everything. So even now, we are not certain if whatever we have planned will pan out because we are still not out of the woods yet. But I can say that we do have interesting events and activities planned for the year, but most of them, until we are told that the lockdown has, it has been lifted off totally, then it will be easy for us to reinstate our plans. But we intend to work closely with our partners outside South Africa because Nelson Mandela was a worldwide icon like you guys. And the Michigan State University, our colleagues in Kenya, Mozambique, and everywhere where we have partnerships. And we intend to form more partnerships with other countries whose role was played in a way that assisted South Africa to attain democracy. So in a way, we want to keep the Nelson Mandela's legacy alive the best way we can. Let me not preempt our plans right now because, like I'm saying, it's difficult to plan, and then COVID-19 comes and we have to try to find ways of adapting to that. But we do have plans in place. Maybe I can be in a better position to answer that question at the beginning of the year because by then I'm sure we would have known which direction we are taking.
Thank you,
but
Nelly.
Everything else happens online right now. Yeah.
And as you say, it's all fairly up in the air. And just to sort of let any listeners know, I think you have a Twitter feed and you have an Instagram feed as well as the website. Is that right?
Yes, and Facebook. Yes.
And Facebook. So if anybody is interested in following what the museum are up to, then that will be a good way to do so.
Yes.
Another question has just dropped in, Nelly, and I think, if I hand this one over to you. So Nelly, how is the museum linked to the university?
Which university? Your university?
To us. One of the listeners has just asked.
Oh, okay. No, the link between us, it's because we are both value-based institutions. We believe in values. We don't believe in living your life just for the sake of living it. You have to live a meaningful life and make sure that wherever you are surrounded by peace and harmony. You see, so I think that's what brought us together because we speak the same language. We don't believe in anything but the values that guide you as a human being before you could learn anything else. You see, unfortunately, other people are not lucky enough to get those values from their families. But when they come to the museum or to the university, they come across those values. And those who need to have a change in their lives then can easily do so because they would see around them that everyone is living according to the values.
Nelly, thank you. And yeah, just to echo Nelly's point there, the values was the sort of main reason, the main driver that we strove to build the links in the first place. And we've been linked now for 4 very successful years. And this is, as I was saying earlier, the reason for we're moving to this online platform. So we're trying to find new ways of people over here linking with people over on the other side, and for information to trade as freely as we possibly can. So Nelly, I think we are running out of time this end, but I just wondered if there was anything you wish to sort of ask us, or if there are any final words you might have from your side.
Oh yes, thank you, Matt. From my side, it's just to say thank you, because this year was very trying. Anyone else would have just given up on the partnership. But you guys and us, we felt that we can't really let this small thing separate us like that. You see, so I'm grateful on behalf of the museum that the partnership is still going strong, and we have some big plans ahead of us with regards to our collaborations. And there's a lot more that we are still going to be doing together in the future. And we even want to encourage our staff here to enroll at your university to further their education, you see. So we are really grateful, and we hope we don't lose you guys, really, because this partnership means a lot to us. Yes, and it assists us as well to extend the footprints of Nelson Mandela, you see. So
Nelly,
it's just to say thank you.
No, equally, Nelly, I have to say thank you very, very much for joining today, because I know that, you know, these links, these long distance links are never easy to manage, but we've all got to the right place at the right time. And I would just like to say thank you very, very much for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure to host you, and we wish you all the very best of luck. So thank you very much, Nelly. Thank you for anybody else that's tuned in. And I'd like to just say enjoy the rest of the week, and hopefully we'll catch up with you again shortly later in the year in another Q&A. So thank you, Nelly.
Thank you so much, guys. Keep well, hey?
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Bye then.
Bye-bye, everyone. Bye.